Welcome back once again. As we earlier said, we're going to be shedding light over the extended efforts by the Egyptian side to attain peace inside the region, to defend the rights of the Palestinian cause, and also to make it sure to resist and object over displacement of Palestinians. And of course, this is going to be unfolded more and more in the upcoming Arab Summit on February 27th, inshallah, in Cairo. Very delighted to be having with us over the phone His Excellency Ambassador Medhat Meligi, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good morning, Ambassador Meligi.
Good morning to you, my dear.
How are you doing, sir? So, a ceasefire that is off and on, and credibility is completely fallen on the Israeli side, and also with the American existence on the scene, Donald Trump in particular, it's becoming worse and worse. So, of course, we are awaiting the exchange of hostages between two sides today. More hostages are released between Hamas and the Israeli side. But at the same time, Israel is always threatening with obstructing the ceasefire and retaining to violence and brutality and bullying, the weaker side, which is the Palestinian side, not respecting the international law, not respecting any agreements or any, talks about ceasefire that were taken on the table between the mediation sides. So how do you read the scene today?
Well, actually, I think we have a little diversion between the American position and the Israeli one. I believe that the Israelis now, because of the internal pressure on the extreme right government of Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, is forced to conclude and to continue with the current deal that has been signed with Hamas. But this is not exactly the vision of the United States, according to Mr. Trump, who gave until today at noon as a final ultimatum to the Palestinian resistance forces to release all the hostages in Gaza. I think that this cannot be done, will not be done, because according to even UN and even American analysis, that this would require a new deal that is not signed yet and is not there on the table. So the ultimatum of Mr. Trump is not going to be valid for time being. Why there is the difference of position? Because I believe that the Israelis think, and they are quite correct in their thinking, that we have always the upper hand to restart our aggression on the Palestinian people. So let's have our hostages now to calm the internal public opinion inside of Israel. And once we have all our hostages, we can, first of all, we can have hundreds of Palestinian prisoners again if we want to. We can once again even take back the same prisoners we just released from our dungeons in Israel, and moreover we can add to those more activists and more sympathizers with the resistance. And actually, even if they are not, as we are seeing in the West Bank, we can still seize and commit as much crimes as we want, war crimes I'm talking about. So this diversion in the position, I think, is in favor of Israel, because as we all know, there is a swap today, and I think 3 prisoners, the Israeli citizens, are going to be released today, and there will be some more released from the Israeli dungeons. Having said that, the situation is becoming more and more tense because of the continuous meddling of President Trump in the situation in a way that no one can cope with. I mean, not just the enemies of the United States, even the friends of the United States, even its own Congress and Senate, who are against it, as we have heard in some reports that we have a document signed by over 145 Senate to ask President Trump not to go with the seize of Gaza as he wants to transform it to a new Rivera in the Middle East. And I believe that this shows the amount of rejection to his plan, even from his own parliament, who actually he has the majority in it, as Republicans. So the idea is becoming more and more pressing, as we have seen that even President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi was forced to delay his visit to the U.S. to come up with a comprehensive deal that will enable the Palestinians to stay on their own territory, while at the same time we resume or we start the reconstruction of Gaza. But here there is a very important point. The idea of us, Egypt, or any other peace-loving country come with a plan to do this, it is not a surprise for the American. I mean, the American administration knows that the reconstruction of Gaza can be done while they're there. The idea is that they want to seize Gaza. This is the main thing. It's not that we are going to come with an idea that it didn't cross anyone from the American administration. No, actually, they know that this can be done. But the idea of Mr. Trump of seizing Gaza, this is what is reigning over the situation. And that's why it is not working, any of our plans. And I believe that the plan, if Mr. Trump would not realize that his plan is absurd, our initiative will not be welcomed by the American administration. Not because it's a bad one, but simply because this contradicts with the intentions of Mr. Trump of seizing Gaza and, as he thinks, make a deal where Palestinians could have better homes somewhere else. And here there is something that is very, it's very oriental, let's say. We are attached to our lands. It is not about finding a new place somewhere else. That's why not most of us are immigrants. But in the Western culture, to migrate to a new place that have a better living condition is an option. It is not always the case when it comes to the Middle East and it comes to the Oriental world.
You raised the very, Ambassador Meligi, you raised a very important point. I was just about to give you my second question, which is assessing the Trump policy in his second term and even in his first term. In his first term, he announced the U.S. Embassy is moving to Jerusalem, which was really a very bad step backwards in the Middle East policy. Now he is asking for the displacement of people out of the land, violating their historical rights and the agreements that were taken back then in history. But add to that, on top of that also, he is contradicting his own U.S. administration's policy inside the United States as a president when he came and rejected totally the migration from people from South America to the United States, to, North America, people from Mexico on the borders. He totally banned the migration, and he totally said that this is not accepted and this is against the law, and those people are going to be deported once again. Now he is trying to impose and enforce that on another place or another land in the world in violation to his laws. So how do you read the Trump policy, generally speaking? There is a lack of credibility.
No, there isn't any.
There is no transparency at all.
It is as simple as that. I mean, as you remember his slogan during the electoral campaign, what did he say? He said that America comes first. So if migration from Latin America and South America is better for the United States, he will allow it. And if staying of the people of Gaza in their homeland is good for the American policies, then he will leave them. This is the idea. What is best, regardless of any rules or laws. I mean, that's why he is asking Egypt, a country that has always been known for a country that respects international law and international humanitarian law, he is asking us to commit a war crime, which is to accept a forcibly displacing of the Palestinians from their land into Egypt. We cannot participate in something like that simply because we respect the international law, something that Mr. Trump do not apprehend, because simply he thinks that whatever he wants is the right thing to do, not whatever complies with the international law. This is a different issue. His understanding of the international law is whatever suits and whatever goes with the American intentions and the American interest. And this is, from this point, you can understand every single policy he's doing. I mean, he didn't just do it with us. I mean, he is not like, of course, he has a little bit more when it comes to the Middle East. But I mean, does he have something against the Canadians, for instance, that he wants to annex their land? Does he have something against the Danes who he wants to take Greenland, which has been a sovereign part of Denmark for over 800 years? Does he have something against the Panamanian, that he wants to confiscate their canal and force them not to sign a renewal with China on their initiative, the Belt and the Road? I mean, the idea is what is best for the American interest, regardless of this if this complies with the international law or not. The United States is not a country that respects the international law. I mean, if it does, we wouldn't have seen their Congress issuing a sanction list against the members of the International Criminal Court, which is part of the international system and the UN system. I mean, this is absurd in itself. I mean, issuing a warrant and issuing sanctions against an international body, this is unheard of. But did this stop the American Congress from issuing such sanctions? No, on the contrary. They were at ease doing it simply because they think that what they want is what should happen, not what complies with the international law that should rule all of us.
Right, and add to that also, to speaking about international law, there is international law and there is the credibility of a leader and a president who respects the state of law of his own country and his own policies. If you are talking a policy, you should have credibility. If you are backing that side, then you should be stick with that, with the right side. Backing the left side, you should stick with the left one. Now he is speaking a policy and doing the opposite. It's in focus, I mean, in particular about this displacement side and about migration. Displacing people out of their historical land doesn't make any sense, doesn't comply with any reason. And he knows that that is not complying with reason, not complying with any sense, but he is enforcing that just by force.
Exactly. This
and nobody is going to accept that.
And this is his tactics as a businessman who has always been dealing with business, is to impose a deal on your opponent and see what will be his reaction, and you will take it from there.
Right.
This is a simple tactic that all businessmen use. And we see this on sharks and on many things that we see even on TV. This is the main idea. It is not about what's right, what's wrong. It's not about how to comply with the international law, because he knows and he has enough juridical institutions that can tell him what's right from what's wrong. But the idea is what he wants. And let's be honest for a single moment here. I mean, in everything related to elsewhere until the Middle East issue, he has, in a certain way, made a breakthrough. I mean, when he pushed Panama, that he will take the Panama Canal, what happened? The Panamanian, wanting to avoid any conflict and any quarrel with Mr. Trump, they just did not sign or renew the agreement with the Chinese. And this is, in itself, it's a success, according to him. And now that the American ships can enter, and I believe we heard that they enter free of charge the Canal of Panama, the Panama Canal. So this is one issue. With the Mexican, he forced them by his verbal offensive. They put around 10,000 soldiers on the border to try to stop the immigrants from fleeing their country and coming into the United States. So actually what he is doing is achieving some results. But when it comes to the Middle East, it's a totally different issue. It is not about a temporary business deal. What we are talking about is to reshape the whole Middle East and the whole Palestinian issue, an issue that is dear to them for over 70 years of oppression from the Israelis. So it will not be as easy as he thinks. And that's why he has to think a little bit more into what does he want to achieve more. Does he want his support to the Israelis to compromise his relation with the rest of the world? I mean, we see it clearly, the diversion between the European position and the American one. The Europeans have said it clearly, even from countries that are traditionally and historically siding by Israel in everything, like Germany, for instance. And it's one of the strongest, if not the strongest, European country in the NATO and in the European Union. Nevertheless, the Chancellor of Germany have said it in a clear word. He said that the idea of displacing the Palestinians is a ridiculous idea, and it is absurd. And nevertheless, Mr. Trump is continuing with his idea and forcing it, and thinking that by pressure he will achieve it. Unfortunately, here we have a situation that is very different, and I believe that Mr. Trump will be defeated on this one if he will succeed on other fronts. But on this front, I don't think it would work, because it cannot be worked. It's not a working idea. But the mere fact that we are debating this idea is a success in itself, because it is an absurd idea coming from the mouth of the American president, and we are debating it as if it's feasible. And this is actually a waste of time instead of focusing on things that matters most, which is how are we going to reconstruct Gaza. And that's why Egypt is already ahead of everyone else talking about reconstruction of Gaza. And this initiative is led by the President of the Republic himself, who understands that as long as Gaza is a destroyed place, then we will always have this debate. So when we start with the reconstruction, these voices will calm down. And let's not forget one last thing here, is that the American president is saying this, and he forgets about how is he really going to move 2 million Palestinians from their land? How is he going to do that if they don't want to leave? This is a very important, I mean, we see discussion between leaders of the world and not talking to the Palestinians, as if those are an object that is going to be removed from one place to another, although their opinion is the most important one. Do they want to leave their territory and go somewhere else, even if it is better? This is a question that nobody is answering. I mean, the Americans do not even want to talk to the Palestinians in Gaza.
Exactly.
They are just talking to Egypt, to Jordan, to other Arab countries, to the European countries, but they are not talking with the Palestinians themselves. Listen to them. Finally, how they are trying to deal with the Ukrainian and Russian war, and how are they dealing with it. It's a totally different approach, because they know that they cannot just go through. They have a respect for Mr. Putin, and they have respect for his capabilities and powers as a strong country in the world. And that's why they are dealing with him differently than what they are doing with the Middle East.
Right. Ambassador Medhat Meligi, you summed it up the best way. On our behalf, on reason's behalf, on justice behalf. You have said it all. Thank you so much, Ambassador Medhat Meligi, a former Assistant Minister for Foreign Affairs. Thank you so much talking to us on The Breakfast Show. We're going to go to a short break, and we'll come to continue The Breakfast Show, so stay with us.